Hey everybody, what's going on? Patch 10.2 bonus update has gone live today, so I just wanted to do a quick little video to kind of review it and talk through some of the changes. As with most bonus balance updates, there's really not too much. It's mostly nerfs. The first one to talk about is Heroism. Heroism has been really fun to play with for me this season. Something that I want to note that isn't on this tooltip on the item: the shield lasts 10 seconds total if it isn't, damaged before then. So the effect no longer stacks with itself or other shields. It will overwrite existing smaller shields, and new larger shields will overwrite it. So if you're something like a Geb and you shield your teammate and then they get CC'd, the Heroism shield will just overwrite it. This can still be okay because in the middle of combat, people that you're shielding are generally taking damage as they're being CC'd, as you're using your abilities to help save them. That's like the point of the shield. So this really isn't too bad other than niche scenarios, mostly on your solo laners. Think something like a Nike. This shield probably won't get as much value if there's just a Nike shield, and then your Heroism passive is essentially wasted for her. It's good in general, the item still is, but this little functionality change does nerf it a bit. Increasing the cooldown on the passive from 8 seconds to 15 seconds, like I said initially, the shield does last 10 seconds. So it went from, over 100% uptime to, 67% uptime. It's still good, but having this be the case makes it much more situational, in my opinion, in terms of what you want to buy it against. I still think the item is best against single target pick comps. Gods like Fenrir, gods like Sobek, who really only have the ability to isolate a single target and try to kill them at the start of the fight. That's really what I'd be looking for this item against. The biggest thing here is that in the next big patch, 10.3, this is supposed to be, they kind of split the season up into mini seasons within year X or year 10. 10.3 is the first big season shift, so it'll essentially be kind of like a mid-season patch, and we'll be getting gold per 5 on the item in that update. So a couple nerfs for now, leading into a buff later. So for the short term, the item isn't going to be as strong, but I'm looking forward to see the gold per 5 and the other changes they do to it. Following Heroism are back-to-back ring nerfs. I'm actually not a huge fan of these. Decreased attack speed by 5% on telekines, decrease the bonus damage by 3 per level to 2 per level, so it scales from 1 damage to 20 damage on each additional bonus auto. And then on Cyclopean, 10 less power and 1% less max health damage. I'm not a huge fan of these nerfs. I do think that MAGE ADCs have been the strongest carry gods in the duo lane this year, but I attribute that mostly to just the early game pressure, specifically before any of these items are finished. So a little bit puzzling to me to see this. I don't think it's been years since MAGE ADCs like Freya have really been meta. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. I'm a little bit skeptical on these nerfs. Assassin class nerf and a Jotun's nerf. Love both of these changes. Junglers have just been getting away with murder in the early game this season. Having 3 less pen, but then getting a little bit more scaling, so their level 20 is still the same, and then having a little bit less power on Jotuns. I like both of these changes. I actually would have liked to see the Jotun's change be gold instead of the power on the item. I think the item is just far too cheap for what it gives. It's like 2200, 2250, whatever it is. It's just way too cheap in my opinion. But overall, 5 power and some pen early game will definitely be noticeable. Moving on, it's about time. The book nerfs, Tablet and Book of Thoth. Base Book of Thoth, 10 less power, 1% less magical power to mana conversion, and then on the upgrade, the same 10 less power, and instead of having 1% less mana conversion, it is 2%. So it used to go from 7 to 10 when fully stacked, and now it goes from 6 to 8 when fully stacked. The item will still give the most power of any mage item in the game, but I think it's really cool to have Book of Thoth nerf. I think it's been really OP for too long. I think it's been by far the best mage first item, and has been fairly restrictive in builds. That you haven't really seen a lot of mages go warlocks anymore, or even go like Bancrofts or a pen item rush, all of that sort of stuff. So hopefully this opens up some diversity in mage builds while also having Book of Thoth be a very good build. You combine that with the Tablet of Destiny's nerf, it is 0.14% of your max mana per stack to 0.12%. I believe this just converts from, this is like a 1% total, right? Because there's 50 stacks, 0.2% times 50 is 1%. So it'll go from 7% of your total mana as true damage to 6% of your max mana as true damage. Something to note about this is that Book of Thoth actually doesn't give you any less mana. So the magical power conversion doesn't actually nerf Tablet that much. So this is not a double nerf. It is just a nerf in your base ability damage that you'll have from Book of Thoth, and then a slight nerf to the true damage from Tablet. So really you'll have two different archetypes here where you can go Book of Thoth into Tablet for the mana, or you could go a more power, you know, ability-based build with items like Ob Shard, that sort of thing. I'm expecting to see more buffs to that style of mage build in patch 10.3. I think these nerfs are really, really good. I don't think they're too extreme. I think this build will still be the best build, just going Book of Thoth into Tablet. But I like to see that it's tuned a little bit, and I think especially the base nerf on Book is really good. Next up are some solo lane nerfs again, which I'm actually a little bit surprised with. Pretty much every single starter that solo laners want to buy have been nerfed. Gladiator Shield, 35% to 30% of your protections from items and abilities as physical damage. This kind of got cut off. This tooltip is a little confusing, but it's just a 5% nerf to the damage on it. Not that crazy, but it does add up a lot, right? You're buying this item on characters that spam abilities on you. So it will be quite noticeable, especially in the mid to late game when solo laners really start rotating with a lot of prots. Sundering Axe nerf, decreased percent current health bonus damage and healing from protection scaling from 2% to 1% of your total protection from items. I think this nerf is a little misleading because I don't think this is actually the total number of how much like damage it does. There's like two separate parts to Sundering Axe nerf, or to the Sundering Axe tooltip, but I believe this nerf is actually a crap ton. Like, I mean, obviously it's a 50% nerf in terms of just this tooltip, but I think in the late game this is going to convert to like a couple hundred damage, especially on tanks. So yeah, if I'm a soul laner, I really don't know what they're going to build. I don't know if they still want Sundering Axe. I don't know if they'll go back to Tainted Steel or to Bluestone, but Bluestone got nerfed, then Sigil got nerfed, now Sundering Axe has been nerfed. Soul laners definitely have really, really strong builds, but I think their upgrades are going to be feeling quite a bit worse now, so I'm really not sure what to think about this nerf. Maybe it's tank propaganda, but I'm a little skeptical of this, along with the Mage ADC nerfs as well. Tower Shield buff, T2. The item was just horribly statted. It just gave you 15 prots for like 1100 gold, so now it gives you 30. Nothing too crazy. God nerfs, Mercury, passive, a little bit less scaling, 30% to 20, and then made you look a little bit longer cooldown, just 1 second. Just slight tuning. I think this will also hit Merc a lot in terms of the passive, for him to not be as able to just get a bunch of early kills. He's just a really good ganker in ranked especially, so he's kind of getting double nerfed. The Jotun's nerf doesn't really matter a ton to him. And then Surtur, Emberwalk, decreased max stacks on the movement speed buff from 4 to 3, so from 30% to 25%, and decrease the slow from 20 to 15%. Surtur seems pretty strong to me. I really like the style of character that he is. I think he is very tanky, but in a way where he has to be able to continue fighting. He has to be able to continue using his passive. I've definitely enjoyed having him in my games and playing with and against him, so I'll be interested to see how this nerf affects him. And lastly, Heimdall buff. It's really a fix. His ability had slightly been, it had been unintentionally reverted, a buff that he had previously. It should deal 90 to 310 base damage. I believe it was hitting for 70, which was just a bug. It said 90 on the tooltip, but an old buff just was unintentionally reverted, as they said. And that's the end of the bonus. Overall, pretty good patch. I really like that. In my opinion, they hit the nail on the head with... Is that the saying? Who knows? The hammer hits the nail. It doesn't matter. I'm not a saying guy. You know I'm not a saying guy. But everything they nerfed, with the exception of maybe the mage rings to me, make a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm really excited for patch 10.3. It's going to be a huge one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.